Welcome to this edition of On the Line with AgriLife, where we hope to connect you to the most current information Texas A&M AgriLife Extension agents and specialists have to offer. On the Line with AgriLife is hosted on the first and third Tuesdays of every month at 8:30 in the morning. You can always get a reminder about an upcoming On the Line by joining our text remind system by texting the @ OTLWA to the number 81010. While today we've got a special guest joining us, really quickly we want to remind you that our next On the Line with AgriLife will be hosted on June 1st, and Brad Rader, the Gillespie County agent, and Stephen Zeller, the Kendall County agent, will be discussing the pros and cons of raising Dorper sheep in Texas. So today's On the Line with AgriLife, we are pleased to welcome Tanner Hash, Martin County agent, and Regan Nolan, Extension Agronomist out of San Angelo, as they discuss past, current, and future cotton variety trials. Enjoy!
I'm an extension agronomist out of San Angelo, and I cover kind of loosely what I wasn't really written into the job description very well, what my territory was, but I say generally within a 2-hour drive or a little more than that, maybe, of San Angelo. So I get up into Howard and Martin counties and Fisher and Jones County and out around Glasscock and Reagan and Upton counties, the cotton producing areas over in that direction, and then down here in the Concho Valley and Tom Green, Runnels, and Concho counties. And so as far as cotton's concerned, now we do a lot with forages and grain crops and stuff farther east and north of us as well. But just to give you all an idea of kind of where I'm coming from, the area that I serve, I started this job in 2018 in that fall, and so I've got 2 full years on the job now, so I'm still pretty new, but a big part of our program that we've been building and focusing on is our cotton variety testing program. And we call these RACE trials. RACE stands for Replicated Agronomic Cotton Evaluation Trials. And these are on-farm variety trials that we coordinate with growers and county agents all around the area. My first year, we had 6 of them planned. There was going to be one in Martin County that ended up not getting planted because the grower was had gotten blown out and replanted and was back and forth and scrambling, and we just couldn't coordinate it to line up that time around. And then we had one in Jones County, Glasscock County, and a couple of them in Tom Green County. Last year we were able to pull one off in Glasscock County and here in Tom Green and Runnels, and we planted them in Martin County, Jones County, and lost a couple of sites. And so if when a crop fails out or we have issues getting it in, it's tough to really pull these off. And so I'm learning how best to approach that, and we're kind of excited about what we've got going so far this year. We have trials planned for Martin County again. We've got one already planted in northern Glasscock County, just kind of across the line from Forsan or that area. We'll have one in Garden City. We'll have one in Runnels County, one in Fisher County, Jones County, Tom Green. So we're really trying to cover the area well and generate good, objective, unbiased information about cotton varieties for y'all. And so the biggest point that we focus on with this is that these trials are replicated. And the whole idea behind that is so that we can run legitimate statistics and tell you this variety did better than that one. Because I can't tell you that when you only have one strip of each variety in a field and you catch yield off of each one. There's no way to know if that difference is due to variation in the field or actually to those genetics. And so we replicate everything in big strips 3 times. We feel really good about the numbers that we get out of these. We end up finding very often that there aren't as many differences because we're averaging across those reps and we're getting a more representative number than what you might think or see from a single rep strip trial. And so I'm going to run through briefly kind of some of our results over the past couple of years. And this is challenging for the companies sometimes to choose varieties that they think will travel well across our region because we keep the same entries across the area that we cover so that we're able to combine locations in our analysis too. And I can make a more broad statement about what's best adapted for the region or the area rather than one particular county. That can be troublesome. I know there are local exceptions with this variety does really well right here and it doesn't go very well anywhere else. But we're really looking for the ones that fit well consistently and that we can be confident in recommending to y'all. So let's see, in 2019, just to give y'all an example, we had both irrigated and dryland trials. On the irrigated side, we tested Delta Pine 1948 and 1845. For BASF, we had FiberMax 2498, Stoneville 5600. For Next Gen, it was 4936 and 5711. And for Phytogen, it was 480 and 350. Those results vary across sites, but as far as the irrigated trials go in that year, the ones that we really got yield on were Tom Green County and Glasscock County. Now, the Glasscock County site that we work with is probably very similar to any irrigated land that y'all have up there because it's low water. It might be 1.5 to 2 gallons the acre minute, and it's tying a whole bunch of wells together to pull that off, and it can be touch and go, very seasonal on whether or not there's water to push a crop along. And so we can pretty reliably get a crop out there, but we're never going to push our yield real high unless the rain really comes in and helps us out. So it's a very marginal kind of deficit irrigation water situation. And in that year, Phytogen 480, here, let me run up this and make sure I'm not lying to y'all. Yeah. So at that particular site in that year, Phytogen 480, FiberMax 2498, Phytogen 350, and Delta Pine 1845 were in our uppermost statistical grouping. And so we'd say that those all did the best. We can't objectively say that one of them did better than the other. I read them off to you in the order that they are in our table and numerically, but the variance between those reps tells us that those are in a group together. In the dryland sites in that year, Phytogen 480 also was by itself at the top. The dryland sites combined, and then if we look at dryland in Tom Green County and at Jones County, and so that was a situation where this one variety, relative to the conditions that we had that year and the qualities of that variety, it showed up and did well across all these sites. And so moving forward, I'm pretty confident telling guys if they're growing Phytogen or interested in growing Phytogen cotton, that's one to put on the dry land and the limited irrigation. And that's what the Phytogen guys will tell you too. But it was cool that we were able to verify that with our own information. And in a site where there was heavier water, the wall irrigated site that year in Tom Green County, it wasn't at the top. And I think Delta Pine 1948 was that in that kind of higher yield environment. And so that's the kind of information that we're putting together. And the reports for each of these are available on our websites. If you go to our agronomy site here, you can find your way to it, but it's probably easiest to go to variety testing. If you just Google Texas A&M variety testing or something, you'll find it. But varietytesting.tamu.edu is the website where all these reports are housed. And we go through and break apart yield, turnout, and all of your grades. We run HVI on all of these through the FBRI, Fiber Biopolymer Research Institute at Texas Tech every year. And then we've got loan value. And so for each variety, we're not just talking about which one yields the best. We're looking at all of those qualities. It's all tabled out and averaged for you. And again, this is data that we're very confident in because we have that replication, and we're approaching this very much from a third party, unbiased platform where we just want to figure out what's the best so that we can communicate that to the grower. And so I'm excited about this program. I've had good feedback and good success with it so far. And I think that we're generating really valuable information for the area. I could roll through some of these grades and stuff if y'all want, but I might skip over that. And if y'all want to talk about it in a little bit, if we have any questions or whatever, we can kind of elaborate or carry on a little more. I might pause for a minute. Tanner, do you have anything, or do you want to chime in, or does anybody out there have any questions so far?
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to speak up. We can save it to the end and do it all
Sure.
at once. If something pops up, just unmute the mic and ask questions. We'll kind of keep this pretty informal, but
Yeah, however y'all want to do it. I'm easy.
sure.
So I'll roll through a little bit of what we did last year, and then we can talk a little more about what's coming up or what's going on. Last year we had a pretty challenging. Well, every year is challenging, but last year was in particular. And we had early maturing varieties tended to do better because they made their crop on whatever moisture we started out with. And that cotton ran out of gas at some point in the season, and then it got kind of cold and wet and weird there in early September, and everything pretty much shut down after that. We didn't have a lot of boll set and real maturing of good quality money bolls late season, like sometimes we hope. With our longer season varieties, we can get away with that with a later planting in West Texas and then as far south as we are. It did not come through for us last year, so that really hurt. But we did have 3 sites that we were able to get data on. Those being Dryland site in Runnels County, and then irrigated sites again in Tom Green and Glasscock counties. And these are the same farms that we used in 2019. So same irrigation conditions that I was describing to you earlier. Something that we started adding last year is emergence. And so rather than just reporting on harvest, yield and grade, et cetera, we're taking stand counts in season. And this year, I don't know how ambitious I'll get or how much time we'll have, but I'm considering trying to do some kind of other vigor ratings or some other measurement of plant health and growth in season, just to give guys a metric to compare and an idea among varieties. But emergence and ultimate plant establishment is probably the biggest agronomic factor, right there beside yield or yield potential, right? Especially if we're trying to establish cotton under marginal moisture conditions in West Texas. We need to know that we can get it out of the ground, and that's become a huge focus for the industry in recent years. And I'm excited to see through our data that all the companies have done well with improving or at least being competitive with their varieties to merge and get out of the ground. But in the Tom Green County site last year, Phytogen 480 was at the top, along with FiberMax 2398. This is in terms of emergence, so stand establishment. Delta Pine 2020 and Phytogen 350. At our dryland site in Runnels County, Next Gen 4098 stood out by itself. It emerged better than anything. And I reached out to one of our Next Gen guys when I was running some of the numbers on this, and because I couldn't remember when we were in the field if it was a small seed. I was thinking maybe we dropped some doubles because our numbers were pretty high on our stand counts. I mean, they weren't over 100%, but they were really good compared to everything else. And it was a really tough, dry field to plant into. And he said, no, it's a big seed. It's like a walnut. You're not planting any doubles. And the establishment, the emergence that we're seeing is consistent with what other folks have reported around the state as well. So it's cool, again, for us to be able to pull out exciting information about varieties like that, validated against what the companies are breeding for and marketing, and comparing it to our other race trials around the state. And so these give us the ability to really kind of go in and be critical of what we're working with, and to get excited about the material that's coming out of these companies. Again, all of them. So I'll roll into yields a little bit from last year, but it helps me a little bit that everybody does good, so that I'm not the bad guy. I get to highlight good points for these different companies in different ways, because they all have strong points that come through in these trials. FiberMax 2398 was a big winner for us last year. Across our irrigated trials combined, and within those it did well. And NextGen 4098 was right up there with it. And so those were our top two yield wise. As far as loan value went, per acre, or lint value per acre, it was the same. Actual loan on cents per pound, FiberMax 2398, along with Delta Pine 2055, NextGen 5711, and Stoneville 4990 were among the top there. Again, we table all this out, combine locations, we look at them individually, etc. And I can share a screen with y'all if you're on a computer and want to look at it, but or point you to where you can go see these for yourself. But I'm glad to share this information, however it's most useful. Tom Green County, in 2020, we had Delta Pine 2020 lint yield was a little bit lower, but ended up coming out a little bit ahead on total dollars per acre lint value, behind FiberMax 2398, which I mentioned earlier, but just ahead of, kind of toggling neck and neck with NextGen 4098. So those three were among the best performing, and kind of each had their strong suits. But in our kind of higher irrigated, higher yield environment last year, to give y'all an idea, our yields, and I say higher, they weren't even that great because of the year we had last year. But on the top end, we were at 872 pounds. And so it's not even two bale cotton, but getting kind of close to it anyway. At Glasscock County, our top end was between 500 and 600 pounds, and NextGen 4098, FiberMax 2398, NextGen 5711, Phytogen 350. Those were the ones among the top. I'll highlight that Phytogen there, and then we might zoom back over to the irrigated site in Tom Green County, and then probably our dryland site in Runnels County as well. Like I said earlier, those earlier maturing varieties stood out. And so 350 last year did better at all of our sites than 480. The year prior, 480 beat everything. and so it's kind of cool to look at the conditions that we had in that year, and to learn from, the differences in these varieties, the maturities, and really put that into context. And it's cool whenever we can get the same couple of varieties from a company for a couple of years in a row. It's difficult for them to do that because they're constantly rolling out new material that they're promoting. But when they can get a good variety in the pipeline, I mean, I'll use Delta Pine 1646 as an example. That's been a staple and planted everywhere for so long. It still gets entered in some of these variety trials around the state, and it's 5 years old now. So that happens, but for the most part, these companies are trying to crank out the newest, best stuff that they're entering in these trials, to be competitive and to show you kind of what they're generating and what's on the market. In Runnels County last year, this is that dryland site I mentioned earlier that really kind of struggled. It was the only dryland site that we got yield off of, and our yields were down around 150 pounds an acre. So pretty low for the area, but grateful that the grower was willing to harvest it and help us generate this data. The top group here, and the statistics didn't come out on this at all because everything was so similar in a yield environment like that. You'll find that our yields from the bottom to the top ranged from 130 to 154 pounds, and so we only had 24 pounds of lint spread among all of our varieties in the trial. And so it's difficult to say these were better than those whenever they're all that similar. And so our statistics show that they were all very similar. The only real differences that we have are in quality, mic length and strength. There's some variety differences. But that uppermost grouping in our dryland site, and kind of in the worst case scenario production environment, I would say, as far as something that we would actually take to harvest, this is about as low as we get. Delta Pine 2020 Stoneville 5707 is a big seed and a good dryland variety that they've been marketing lately. And then Phytogen, both 350 and 480 were up there. Again, those did well on emergence and have shown up in the dryland. Excuse me. I could ramble some more. I can give y'all an opportunity to ask any questions or chime in with any comments or whatever. Y'all let me know what you want.
Yeah, we can open it up to a few questions if anybody has some. I've got some that I wrote down for you as well. So, I can, if anybody has any questions, you can ask away. But, okay. So you talked a little bit about the weather, and everybody knows in Texas that the weather has a major factor into it. So what, do y'all collect any weather data as well along with these? And if so, what kind of weather data?
Yeah. So we'll publish these little charts in each report that have rainfall monthly totals plotted against what the annual averages are for each site. And then we'll talk about, if it was a major factor, we'll talk in our summary about temperature. If it was a really cold spring, or, we had an early frost, or it was a whole lot hotter than normal, we do talk about that in the summary. The first page or two of the report is an overview of what happened across the region, not just in our trials, but what was the status of cotton in West Central Texas, this year. And what factors do we think contributed to that, and what results did that kind of have on which varieties came to the top and that sort of thing. So that is discussed. The level at which it's discussed depends on how much of a factor it is in a given year. Temperature wasn't a whole lot different than normal last year. It was just that it didn't rain. And so our big focus is that it didn't rain. And so we've got, figures showing how far below average we were on our annual rainfall relative to the average at each site. So that's the biggest thing that we include, I guess. And I think that probably has the most to do with whether early or late maturing varieties, are going to do better in a given year is when they have access to moisture.
Yes. Okay. What kind of management goes into these? I guess all these varieties kind of depend on what you're using and what kind of herbicide pesticides go in.
Yeah, that's a good question. So one of the big points or objectives of this project or these trials is that they are on farm and they're managed according to the growers' practices. And so the most valuable, or I guess this information is valuable to the area, to cotton producers all around the region, but it is the most valuable to the producer who hosted the trial, because that data comes from their farm and they know exactly what went into it and what they got out of it. And so we don't really manipulate or try to impose different management factors, other than we have to restrict use of auxin herbicides, because we're including XtendFlex, Enlist, and Glytol Liberty Link, like FiberMax varieties, all in the same trial together, all randomized and mixed up. And so we avoid spraying dicamba or 2,4-D. That's the only management factor that we have to require of the grower. But otherwise, it's however they would manage it normally. And you get a wide range of management, styles and levels of input. And that's okay. I mean, that represents what folks are doing, in real life around the region.
Okay, good. If producers want to get in on one of these trials, what is the best way to do that?
If they want to get in on one, or host one?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I would say that the most direct line is the county agent in that county, who are all connected back to me or our program, or they can reach out to me directly. I mean, either way is really fine. But whenever I'm looking for a trial in an area, I call the agents in the area first and start saying, hey, do y'all have any guys or know of anybody, or can you ask around? I try not to go, making calls and trying to set all that up without them in the loop. And so it really is through the agents, and it works well that way for our program to have someone local that's familiar with the project and can drive by it every now and then and let us know. And Tanner, from last year, hey man, how bad does it look out there? you could help us out. So, and I've pulled agents in on planting and harvest at most of the sites that we've managed over the past 2 years. And so this is a collaboration with the county extension programs, very much so. And so that's what I'd say is reach out to an agent or to me, either way, but you're going to wind up in the loop with everybody. and please, if anyone out there is interested, feel free to reach out, because we're always having those conversations and trying to identify good sites.
Good deal. Yes, sir. Does anybody else have any more questions before we wrap it up? All right. We do thank you for being on today, and I think there was a lot of good things covered, and what you're doing over there, I think is really great for those cotton producers all around this region. So we definitely thank you for what you're doing.
I hope so, and I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, be sure to join us on June 1st as we'll talk about the Dorper sheep, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Tanner.